my God, my God, my adored one, my King and my desire, my God, my God, my adored one, my King and my desire. What drunken voice, my thanks to thee. I was heedless, thus awaken me. I was as one dead, that has quickened me, that has quickened me with the water of life. My God, my God, my adored one, my King and my desire. My God, my God, my adored one, my King and my desire. What drunken voice, my thanks to thee. I was heedless, thus awaken me. I was as one dead, that is quickened me, that is quickened me with the water of life.
O thou compassionate Lord, thou who art generous and able, we are servants of thine sheltered beneath thy providence. Cast thy glance of favor upon us. Give light to our eyes, hearing to our ears, and understanding and love to our hearts. Render our souls joyous and happy through thy glad tidings. O Lord, point out to us the pathway of thy kingdom, and resuscitate all of through the breaths of the Holy Spirit. Bestow upon us life everlasting and confer upon us never-ending honor. Unify mankind and illumine the world of humanity. May we all follow thy pathway, long for thy good pleasure, and seek the mysteries of thy kingdom. O God, unite us and connect our hearts with thy indissoluble bond. Verily, thou art the giver, thou art the kind one, and thou art the Almighty.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry, my PC doesn't get connected somehow. I've got problem with my internet here. So I cannot bring the notes that I prepared onto the screen. You will have to put up with my broken English pronunciation of reading them for you. But we will start now. Louis, do we know how many people are online now?
We have 38 participants.
30 now?
38.
38, okay, fine. All right, you've got on your screen Iran, right?
It should be.
Yeah, so far we have done 2 paragraphs on Iran, and today we are going to do the 3rd and maybe 4th or even 5th if we can. But I would like someone who was present last time just to summarize what we kind of discussed and did in the last session. Anyone? Please.
Three and 4 or only 3?
Say it again, sorry.
3 and 4 or only 3?
Today we are going to do 3rd onwards. Hopefully we'll be able to do 3 and 4. But last time we kind of discussed the second paragraph in Iran, paragraph number 2, which starts with the essence of these words is this. Yeah, do you remember what we discussed?
I'm sure more can add, but just to start the conversation, we talked about well, that second paragraph and treading the path of faith. We talked about we need to have a longing, thirst, or craving to find the station of certitude, and in that we should detach ourselves from all earthly things. And then the quote mentions a few things like idle talk, vain imaginings, cleanse our hearts from the worldly affections. Then we talked about what is that station of reaching ultimate detachment, and we discussed that it's only the martyrs that have really attained this ultimate detachment. Beheshti, I remember you shared that Adib Teharzadeh had said that even when we are living, we are still breathing the air, and to that we are attached. So even in that, we cannot be completely detached from all things. And we also talked about, as we are detached from that, we should be attached to something, and that should be the attachment to God ultimately, and that should be manifested in deeds also, not just in words. And after that, we talked about the sacred book being the standard, and we should not perceive God with the eyes of mortal eyes, but with the spiritual eye, I guess. And we also talked about the Kitáb-i-Íqán is the unerring balance by which everything should be weighed. So this idea of really trying to understand God with the right spirit or the right form, I guess. I'm sure someone has something to add, so please feel free.
Sure, please do. That was perfect. Very good. Anyone else? Yes. Okay. Well, that almost covered everything. And detachment, and Baha'u'llah also mentions another thing. It says that we should sanctify our souls. And for that, he has few prerequisites for it. For example, he says, we must cleanse our ears from idle talks, minds from vain imaginations, hearts from worldly affection, and so on. This is the formula that Baha'u'llah has given us so that we sanctify our soul. And once we have practiced all that, while we are on the path of search, then we get to the state of true understanding, the state of knowledge, or the state of certitude. And that's when we become 100% sure, without any doubt, that the manifestation for the day is the one, true one from God. And of course, that is the beginning. Then we need to continue deepening ourselves, acting what the teaching tells us, putting it into practice, and so on. Yes? Anyone wants to add anything more to that?
That just reminded me what you said, which
Yes.
struck me last time. You said when you reach that station of certitude, then that's the beginning. I really love that.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
it's a journey to get to that station, but even when we get to that, it's only really the beginning. I really love that.
Yes. Yes. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, Louis, we don't get to, we do not get that knowledge, that true understanding through the earthly knowledge. it only comes to us from the light of God through the prophets of God to us. We will become inspired to have that vision, that understanding that Baha'u'llah is talking about. Yes? Good. Okay. Anything more? Anybody, please? All right. If not, then we will go on to the third paragraph. And I would like somebody to read the third paragraph and then try and tell us what the gist of it is. Go on, please. Somebody, Leila Jan, as I know you, can you do it? Can you read it, Leila?
I can read it, but I don't know if I
Go
can
on, then.
do the best at interpreting it. So if someone could help me out with that, that would be appreciated. But I will read it.
Okay,
Number 3.
number 3. Consider the past.
How many, both high and low, have at all times yearningly awaited the advent of manifestations of God in the sanctified persons of his chosen ones? How often have they expected his coming? How frequently have they prayed that the breeze of divine mercy might blow, and the promised beauty step forth from behind the veil of concealment, and be made manifest to all the world? And whensoever the portals of grace did open, and the clouds of divine bounty did rain upon mankind, and the light of the unseen did shine above the horizon of celestial might, they all denied him, and turned away from his face, the face of God himself. Refer ye to verify this truth, to that which hath been recorded in every sacred book.
Okay. So please tell us, as many of you as you can, share your thoughts on that with us, please. What is that paragraph telling us? Quite straightforward, isn't it?
Maybe I can try.
Yes, go on.
So it explains that in every century awaited a prophet or the manifestation of God, and prayed for that to come. But when it came in that moment, everybody denied the prophets of basically all religions. And yeah.
That's right.
If I could offer a thought, please, friends.
Yes, please.
Hi, my name is AJ. It's my first time joining this meeting. This paragraph reminds me a lot of the verse from Exodus, from the Bible, and that's where the phrase "God passes by" comes from, in the book by the Shoghi Effendi as well, where even though people are very eager to receive the manifestations, receive prophecies for the return of Jesus Christ, of the Messiah, in a sense, people don't know what they want, or be careful what you wish for, because you might get what you wish for, and in the end, you may not be ready for it, or you may not recognize it when it comes. So God sort of tells Moses in the Exodus that when my glory comes to pass, actually it will be as if I've hidden you in a cleft, in a cave in the rock, and I've covered you with my hand, and actually you'll deny me, you won't actually see me coming. And then also recalls perhaps the parts of the Bible that says, the kingdom of God will come like a thief in the night. So as in you won't know when it's come, because people, the mass of people, are not spiritually ready. They say they're ready, but actually, be careful what you wish for. And that's what this recalled to me.
Beautiful, yes. Wonderful point. Anyone else?
My name is Sally. This also brings to mind that when people are expecting the return, they are judging, they are using their own personal standards to judge whether that person is the manifestation of God or not. So, you know, for example, when Jesus returned and they said he was the king of the Jews, they say he's not a king. Look at him, you know, he's just a poor man. And so you can't be using your own personal standards, you know, to apply to make the judgment.
Great, yes, of course. That's a good point.
I think
Yes.
Oshan raised his hand.
Say it
Oshan?
again.
I think Oshan raised his hand, please.
Yeah, should I go? So I think one thing that you know, this is written for the Bab's uncle, declare, you know, sort of to show about how the Bab's mission to explain to him over, but also this is a reflection of Baha'u'llah himself, saying how many times people have, you know, looked for the promised one. So it's a double meaning here. He's saying for the Bab and for himself. That's one thing I feel. The other one is in the very beginning where it says both high and low. You know, it's doesn't matter if you were very close to God or high up in the religion or low down. It's also a reflection on the people that first accept the new dispensation that comes in. It could be anyone from any background. And the other thing AJ reminded me, this is also in Gleanings, this specific paragraph. So
yes,
a reason that Shoghi Effendi picked it out. So it has some importance in that. Yeah.
True. Yes. Any other?
May I add, Beheshti?
Yes.
Just in regards to what Sally was saying, I think that's also is reflected in that second paragraph we read, where it says, where it talks about the standard. But then this paragraph reminds me of the hymn word 22 of the Persian. I'll just read it. Baha'u'llah writes, O son of Desire, the learned and the wise have for long years striven and failed to attain the presence of the All-Glorious. They have spent their lives in search of him, yet did not behold the beauty of his countenance. Thou, without the least effort, didst attain thy goal, and without search, obtain the object of thy quest. Yet notwithstanding, thou didst remain so wrapped in the veiled self, that thine eyes beheld not the beauty of the beloved, nor did thy hand touch the hem of his robe. Ye that have eyes, behold and wonder. And it just reminds me that we have this duty. We might say that we know about Baha'u'llah, know about his teachings, but really we should be careful that we don't take it for granted.
No. And here somebody mentioned Baha'u'llah says high and low. What else do we understand from that? Everyone high and low, he says. They denied. They were yearningly waiting, but they all, one in all, denied the manifestation as they came. So is there any, do you understand any other meaning of this high and low, or it just generalizes people, whether you are a priest or a normal person or an uneducated or whatever? Yeah? I think it means everyone. You see, Baha'u'llah, the point that strikes out in this here, and it's true, and at the end he says, you can verify this truth in all the divine books. He says every single manifestation of God in the past, as he appeared, he was opposed and he was put into trouble because of people either not understanding or whatever the reason was, they did to each and every one of them. And he says also from the people part, from the mankind point of view, every person, whether he was highly educated, whether he was a priest or he had a position, kings or what, they were waiting, but they all denied him and stood against him. Agreeable? Okay. What else? Here, so he says manifestations of God. Is that term used in any other religion for the prophet of God? Anybody has an idea?
It can be similar.
Manifestations, huh?
It could be similar to some of the words used in Indian philosophies and religions about avatars, or for example, of Vishnu, Krishna being one.
Yes.
The Buddha being another one.
They use this title for the prophet of God.
Yeah,
because
most prophecy. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not exactly
because most
thought as a prophecy. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. And then he goes on to say manifestation of God in the sanctified person of his chosen ones. You see, he uses this word chosen ones, which indicate to us that contrary to what some people presume, that the prophets, one day somebody decides to become Moses, so he chooses for himself and he takes up that position as being a prophet. But this point is totally wrong, and we know from the writings all over everywhere and from the history that all these messengers were chosen by the Almighty God. It wasn't their own choice, in other words. Right? Anybody who want to elaborate on that?
I think the Bab does say, I was reviewing recently the examination of the Bab at Tabriz by the authorities, yes. And I think that he does say, when he's challenged by someone saying, how dare you walk into the throne room and sit on the throne, how dare you act in this way? And his response was, it wasn't my choice to do this. I'm being guided. Wow. I'm a tool in the hand of providence of the divine. So me as a merchant from Shiraz is insignificant.
Yes, yes. How great. Yes. Okay.
I had a question, Dr. Heshti. Is this the sort of first time that Baha'u'llah mentions the word manifestation of God? Is that the sort of first time it comes into the Baha'i lexicon?
It appears to be, because in that book of Mr. Hooper Dunbar, a companion to the study of Kitáb-i-Íqán, he clearly says that this is a Baha'i terminology, a term used in the Baha'i faith. So it must be the first time that this is used for a prophet. I have prepared some note. We can read that. I wish my computer was working and I could bring it on the screen, but unfortunately I can't. So I will read it for you, if it's okay. Yes? And of course, after the session, I will send for others if they want to add or subtract anything to it. So, manifestations of God. It is a Baha'i term meaning the messengers of God, such as Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, the Bab, and Baha'u'llah. It is the manifestation of the names and attributes of God. Many Baha'i writings refer to this very subject, including some answered questions. Now, in some answered question, there is a whole chapter called On the Powers and Conditions of the Manifestation of God. And one of the titles that one of the, writing that Abdul Baha talks about is entitled The Three Stations of the Divine Manifestations. It's very, very interesting if you read that at home and study it. Then I found an article by someone called Juan Cole. It's online. It's called The Concept of Manifestation in the Baha'i Writings. And in that he says, I suppose this tablet is not translated and published yet, but it's called the Tablet of Manifestation, which was revealed by Baha'u'llah in Akka. And he mentions few points from there. So if you can get that online, that's interesting as well. Anything? Any opinions?
Excuse me, can you mention his name again?
Juan Cole, Juan Cole.
Thank you.
Could I ask, please, about manifestations? One concept that I'm still trying to understand. For example, we read in the Ruhi books, which I'm working through with some friends, that the metaphor, and I guess it is only a metaphor, so maybe we shouldn't take it too seriously, but sometimes with mystical things, metaphors are the best way to understand it. Words are such a poor tool. If we say that the light of God and the divine is like the sun, and it shines upon all creation equally, it doesn't matter where on earth you are or whether you were born rich or poor, how can we then understand that in the light of what are said to be special beings who seem to have inherited or who seem to have received special favors from God, Baha'u'llah or the Bab? The light seems to shine differently on them as opposed to the rest of creation.
Very good. Anybody?
Alapa, I'm from Redditch, Roya. Hi.
Hello. Royal.
It's
Allah.
my first time joining you. It's lovely to be with you.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
On the subject of manifestation, I thought when we were doing Anne's presentation, there was a booklet. It mentioned that manifest means something that was not told before. So whoever brings something, they're manifesting something new, and that is the manifestation that I gather. That's my understanding.
Sure, sure.
If I
Okay.
also add to AJ, as you say that when mystical things are to be explained, often metaphors are used to kind of convey that meaning. I think with the different metaphors being used, they're able to describe one part of that reality of who they are. And maybe one metaphor might not be able to describe a certain thing. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. I think you need sometimes several metaphors to understand different aspects of a concept because it's so large and so complex.
Yeah.
The way that I've tried to reconcile it is, and again, maybe others may have different views, is that we all have the potential, in theory, because the sun of truth, the light of truth, doesn't shine down upon person A different than person B, upon Haji Mirza Akasi as opposed to Baha'u'llah, but it's just that Baha'u'llah and Moses and Muhammad and Jesus, they were able to activate within themselves through meditation, prayer, sacrifice, their passion, something that the rest of us, just through chance and life and availability of time and distractions and discipline, are not able to achieve. So it's, in a sense, a hopeful message that we can all dig within ourselves, and the Baha'i writings talk about a mine and the hidden gems within that mine. Some people are better diggers than others, and they can get to the gems within their own souls. Not that, at least that's my personal understanding at my stage of the journey, not that God has plucked out from among the human race certain people to be risen above others. That seems to be how the path that my mind is taking at the moment.
I don't think so. I think Baha'u'llah and the other prophets were chosen from when they were a child. So it's a child cannot be, if they are not chosen, they cannot be different because they're not going to be investigating truths as a child. So they were different as a child. So they were chosen for this. It's not something that anybody can do. So it's only chosen people can do it.
And actually, in that sense, we were saying sometimes you need several metaphors. The act of being chosen, that can also, I think, in my mind, be considered as a metaphor. God chose. Some people say that I didn't choose my profession chose me. So just like we're saying, the sun is a metaphor and the light and shining, the choosing can be also considered a metaphor by some people in some ways of looking at things in some perspectives. And in terms of a child, the childlike nature, a lot of spiritual leaders seem to say that to be, the more enlightened you are, the more childlike you are, because you realize how insignificant you are before the Father, before the Lord. To actually, some spiritual perspectives say that we're all born with a spiritually quasi-enlightened state at birth, and we kind of lose that. Picasso said that we're all born artists. The challenge is to remain an artist as you grow up, because the world and burdens of material world and desires, the longer we remain in this world, it burdens us. So it could be that that could kind of address the point you're making about being chosen and about the childlike nature and children's special qualities.
Ocean, please.
If I may say something, AJ, I think as far as the writings are concerned, we are told that the manifestations of God are pre-existent beings. So they are in a separate order to the general the normal people, like some of us. This is just from what it says. I mean, belief is another thing. So because they're another order, they're pre-existent, they are from another sort of in a different position in the hierarchy of created being.
Cosmology, yeah.
The cosmology, exactly.
Could we not also consider that as a metaphor, is my question?
100% that's a metaphor. But then I thought the only way that I could personally explain this in a metaphor now was that, yes, we are mirrors. We are reflecting the light that they were reflecting from God. But maybe the best way for me to say it in this situation is that the light from God is so huge and big that we wouldn't be able to even see it. It's so bright. And that's the role of the manifestations of God, is that they then reflect that light in a way that we can then reflect it ourselves. That's the best way that I can put that, but that it's very clear, I think, in the Baha'i faith that they are a separate entity of being, let's say.
Yes, and also, as I think AJ said, that not all of us, not everybody can develop our soul to the stage of all being the same. Everybody has different capacity as normal people. And we see it in the writings that we are told that no matter how much we progress spiritually, we as human beings cannot get to the realm of the prophets of God. Abdul Baha's writing in some answered question, he explains, I'll just briefly say that maybe that might help. He says that each manifestation of God has got 3 stations. One is the first station is that of is physical, is like human body, whose body is made up of water and mineral. And because it's phenomenal, it comes into being. And because it is composed, then eventually it decomposes itself. The second station is the station of the soul. And that is also phenomenal, comes into being at the time of birth, of conception, actually. And he says, though the soul, this soul is created and specific to the individual, but it becomes eternal. It never dies. It is created, but it never dies. It continues to progress. And the third station, which the prophets of God have, the manifestations of God have, is the station of divine reality. And he says this is forever existed and it will stay forever. And he says, for us, hour and time and day and week and all is for us. But in the sight of God, there is no such limitation. It's the same as you go to the sun, because when you're there, the sun doesn't have these limitations. Okay? And therefore, these prophets of God, they were forever forever they were prophets, and this station will stay forever. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know but it's best if you read it yourself, some answered question.
Yes, yeah, I've read the book.
Okay. Now, there are two quotations of Baha'u'llah. Will just suffice to read those two quotations, see if that also is quite helpful, what he says about the manifestations. This is from Gleanings, page 67 to 68. In the kingdoms of earth and heaven, there must needs be manifested a being, an essence, who shall act as a manifestation and vehicle for the transmission of the grace of the divinity itself, the sovereign Lord of all. Through the teachings of this day star of truth, every man will advance and develop until he attaineth the station at which he can manifest all the potential forces with which his inmost true self had been endowed. See? So these are the essence. He says, act as a manifestation and vehicle for the transmission of grace of divinity itself. And then in another paragraph, in Kitáb-i-Íqán it is, page 73, the person of manifestation had ever been the representative and mouthpiece of God. He in truth is the dayspring of God's most excellent titles and the dawning place of his exalted attributes. So, you see, he here uses the word he had ever been. Does that answer that question that AJ had? This writing about.
Yeah, I think it's very helpful, and these are quite deep concepts that we need to explore.
Yeah.
Perhaps
Okay.
we can all reflect on it and then move on with the Iran.
Yes. Shall we move on? Did you say?
Yes, as a suggestion.
Yeah. Okay. And then his chosen ones. We said earlier that you know, the chosen one, they are the chosen ones, and they don't have a choice themselves. Each one of them is like the sun veiled behind a cloud. This is another point that Abdul Baha says, that they have always been, but they declare themselves to be. It's like the sun that is hidden behind a cloud. Once the cloud is moved, then the sun appears. It doesn't mean if the cloud is covering the sun is not what it is. You see? Veil behind the cloud until at an appointed hour, the veil is removed and he is manifested to the world and its people. He becomes the mouthpiece of God for mankind. In the fire tablet, we have the most amazing conversation between God and Baha'u'llah when he is spoken to by God himself. O Supreme Pan, we have heard thy most sweet call in the eternal realm. Give thou ear unto what the tongue of grandeur uttereth. O wronged one of the worlds. Lament not because of the wicked. And this is interesting when God says, thou wert created to bear and endure, O patience of the world. So this is another point here that God himself is saying that he created Baha'u'llah for the purpose he manifested himself. Any views? So in the last third line, Baha'u'llah uses the phrase, the face of God himself. What do we understand by the face of God? Yeah? Any ideas?
God's love.
Mm-hmm. Yes, could be many things. Of course, this is, go on.
Yeah, God's love and his mercy.
Mm-hmm. This is, of course, symbolic. One should not take it literally, as we know from the writings that the essence of God is not perceivable. No one, neither man nor even the messengers of God, are able to see God as such. Yet we read in the tablet of Ahmad, the people are wandering in the paths of delusion, bereft of discernment, to see God with their own eyes, or hear his melody with their own ears. Shoghi Effendi in God Passes By, he uses these terms for the Almighty God. He says he's a personal God, unknowable, inaccessible, the source of all revelation, eternal, omniscient, omnipresent, and almighty. See, each one of these words has a meaning. What does personal God mean? Friends? Don't let me talk too much, please. Come in yourself and say your opinion or whatever you understand.
Perhaps we can say a personal God is a God that can individually address or understand us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other?
Or I think it is more like what each of us individually with our own capacities can see God.
Yes.
So like each person, according to how spiritual they are, they can understand God. Some people can see God in nature. Some people don't look at nature and they say there is no God. So it depends on your spirituality to find your personal God.
Yes. Any other ideas?
It reminds me of a story I read in the Revelation of Baha'u'llah. I think it was volume 3, where a certain Nabil, I forgot which Nabil, was living in Akka.
Yes.
And he, with another believer, followed Baha'u'llah to Bati one time he was going without permission.
Yes.
But they wanted to follow Baha'u'llah. And when Baha'u'llah reached the mansion, they circumambulated the mansion in the mud and among the trees and bushes. And it was becoming late at night until they returned. And when they returned to Akka, they were staying up the whole night, drinking tea and writing poets.
Yes.
And when they wrote the poets, they were describing the small pilgrimage or journey from Akka to Bachi that night. And in that, they described that they saw the concourse on high. And then they presented these poets to Baha'u'llah. And Baha'u'llah said, this is indeed true.
Yes.
And I recall that Adib Terazadeh describes that this miracle was meant for those individuals that experienced it, but it is not to be regarded as as a sign of God's might to other people, but it is a personal experience these two believers had on that particular time.
Yes. Could it mean when Shoghi Effendi says a personal God, be a unique, a one God, an individual, a single God? Could it mean that? Because all the other attributes are for God itself as well, like unknowable, inaccessible. So he's personal means he's just I understood it this way. I don't know. It would be nice to have other people's opinion. Yeah?
Well, isn't closer than your life vein pretty personal? I mean, I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, could be, yes.
Maybe, sorry, maybe the personal God would be the prophets, because they come to us as like we see them in human form.
Yes.
I don't know, maybe.
Yes, because we also we are told that each person what is it? What was that writing that it relates to us, that human being himself, each individual has all the signs of God in him. Something like that. But then the next word is unknowable. That's quite simple. Unknowable, of course, we cannot know the essence. Of course, we can recognize the existence of God, but we cannot know the essence, the origin of God, right? Inaccessible, we said it earlier as well. We cannot perceive him. He's hidden. And what about the source of all revelation? Is it just the revelation of the religions, or is to do with everything? Yeah? Source of all revelation. It probably includes all created things that was revealed by God. We see his, in creation, one sees everything that reflects as the sign of God. Eternal, of course, has ever been and will ever be. Omniscient means he's all-knowing. Omnipresent means he's present everywhere. And almighty, power, all-powerful. Right? And then, although God is transcendent and inaccessible directly, his image is reflected in his creation. So in human beings and everything else, one can see the image of God. With regards to his own revelation, Baha'u'llah proclaims, quote, "This is the day whereon naught can be seen except the splendors of the light that shineth from the face of thy Lord, the gracious, the most bountiful." He uses the word face of thy Lord here. And this is from the Gleaning, page 29. In another tablet, he says, "He who from everlasting had concealed his face from the sight of creation is now come. O ye leaders of religion, who is the man amongst you that can rival me in vision or insight? Where is he to be found that dareth to claim to be my equal in utterance or wisdom? No, by my Lord, the All-Merciful, all on the earth shall pass away, and this is the face of your Lord, the Almighty, the Well-Beloved." So this phrase, face of God, appears everywhere in the writing. I hope, I don't know if you guys can explain a little bit more of what you understand by the face of God. See what different opinions you have, please.
Can it
Anyone?
also, sorry, can it also mean that, you know, like the analogy of the sun, where in the previous dispensation, the sun was just showing a little bit of its intensity and its heat, and gradually as it reached its zenith, now it's giving its full heat, the full intensity, and we can see the full light of the sun. Therefore, today we can see the true face of God because the sun is fully manifesting itself to us. And as also in retrospect, talking about the personal God, therefore, if the full heat and intensity of the sun is shining on us, therefore now as creatures, we're also reaching that full potential where we can also receive the intensity of the sun, whereas in the past, humankind was only being fed with milk. So now we can truly see God within us because we've been created in his image. So we can also reflect that intensity. And so that our personal God is looking within us so we can find God. Yeah.
That's a very good point, yes. The full intensity, yes. So it's the revelation which in its full intensity has appeared today compared with the previous appearance of the light of God. Yes, good point, I think. Anybody else? On the face of God. Okay, the Quran makes many references to the face of God as well, and it uses the word wajh. Wajh means face, countenance, and is symbolic and is used to refer to God's presence, which in Islam is everywhere. There is a quote in Quran which says, wherever you turn, there is the face of God. And when the prophet Moses, speaking with God on Mount Sinai, asks God to show Moses his glory, God warns that you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live. This is in Exodus chapter 33, verse 20. Also in Christianity, it is believed that God is a spirit. He does not have a body. And in John, it is said, God is a spirit, and his worshippers must worship in the spirit and in truth. Throughout the Bible, we read of his face, hand, ears, eyes, mouth, and mighty arm. So, like many other things, this is also symbolic. Yeah? Any other explanation, please? That point about, I like that point about the sun radiating its light in fullness in this day is a very nice point. Thank you. Is that Royahano? Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah. My opinion, face of God may be a true understanding of God. Like face has so many different phenomena. A true face. How do you explain?
Yes. Right. Yes, yes, very good. All right.
If I may also add,
yes.
A lot of the statements in this book and a lot of the writings from Baha'u'llah talk about like detachment of self,
yes,
and then turning towards God. So in that sense, it might be similar to that, where the face of God is maybe like turning towards God in the sense of like obeying the laws of God and following the qualities, etc. And almost like if you're turning away from his face, it's almost like the opposite of that is you're completely self-centered and like wayward in the sense.
Yes.
So instead of turning away from yourself and facing God, then you're turning away and you're getting consumed by your own ego.
Okay, yes, great.
Can I add something to that?
Sure.
Okay. I think that maybe the quote that was everywhere you turn, you see God. Maybe that means that everything you see or like you soak up in life,
yes,
even if it's bad, there's always something good in it.
Yeah.
That reminds me of one quote that says when a person has 9 bad traits, you only need to look at the one good trait, and when a person has 9 good traits and 1 bad, you only need to look at the 9 good ones.
Yeah.
So I think that in everything in life, that it means that when you turn and you see God everywhere, that you can see love everywhere, and it's actually the your own outlook on everything in life.
Yes. Wow, good. Also, what about identity? Because normally in a human being, face is probably the best or one of the best ways of identifying someone. Yeah, and maybe to identify or recognize the manifestation is, this is the best, this is the best part that for us to understand maybe. And the messengers of God, they have used this term face. Yeah. Okay. Why? I think if there is nothing else, we can move on to paragraph 4. But give me 1 second. Tonight I'm having a lot of problem with my computer, and this phone, it's running out of battery. I'll just run and fetch a wire just next door, next room.
Lewis, will you sing a song while we wait?
I was actually hoping you would, Oshan.
That would be great, Luis. Sing.
I feel like this is peer pressure. The guitar is upstairs. I might be back when Beheshti is back.
Sorry about this.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, I've got the charger on now. Okay, shall we move on to paragraph 4, or someone has something else to add? All right. Would somebody read paragraph 4, please?
I can do that.
Great. Go on then.
Ponder for a moment, and reflect upon that which hath been the cause of such denial on the part of those who have searched with such earnestness and longing. Their attack hath been more fierce than tongue or pen can describe. Not one single manifestation of holiness hath appeared, but he was afflicted by the denials, the repudiation, and the vehement opposition of the people around him. Thus it hath been revealed. O the misery of men! No messenger cometh unto them, but they laugh him to scorn. Again he saith, each nation hath plotted darkly against their messenger to lay violent hold on him, and disputed with vain words to invalidate the truth.
Yeah. These are 2 quotations from Quran, right? The last 2 quotations that Baha'u'llah has included. Okay, anyone with any ideas on this paragraph? Okay, he's telling the uncle, or perhaps this eventually all humankind, to ponder for a moment, or
Beheshti, are you there?
Maybe the battery died.
Yeah, maybe his phone died.
So Louis, it's your moment to sing.
Yay! Not singing.
I'm sure Beheshti would appreciate that we continue talking about this instead of me singing. So does anyone have anything to say on this paragraph? The fourth paragraph we just read that starts
Can
with
we,
God at the moment.
can we
Yes.
just read paragraphs 5, 6, 7, and 8, and then when Dr. Beheshti comes back, we'll be way ahead.
I don't think he would appreciate that. Maybe we can discuss paragraph 4.
Yes, please. Does anyone have anything to say? Just unmute yourself and share.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting how it talks about that when these manifestations of holiness appeared, how they had this vehement opposition from the people around him. So all these manifestations had this opposition, even from people that were so close to them. Like, for example, like Judas, or like with Baha'u'llah, we know, like Mirza Yahya, and even within the covenant of Baha'u'llah, like Baha'u'llah, Abdullah, and the Guardian, they all suffered in the hands of even like their family. So yeah.
Bouncing on from that point, in the seven valleys, I believe it's under the Valley of Unity, there's a passage which reads, thus it is that certain invalid souls have confined the lands of knowledge within the walls of self and passion, and clouded them with ignorance and blindness, and have been veiled from the light of the mystic sun and the mysteries of the eternal beloved. So I assumed after like, I don't know, they become stuck in the valley of knowledge, and they think, oh, like, I don't know, the self takes over, or they believe that they know more than like what's in front of them. So then, you know, they're stuck from, or they're unable to receive the light from the sun. So at that stage, I think the people that are opposing and just denying with no apparent reason, they believe that they have, I don't know, more knowledge than a manifestation of God, which is quite nuts.
I think it's interesting that at the first part of this it says, ponder and reflect upon that which hath been the cause of such denial. You know, it's, I never really noticed that stated quite like that before. You know, what is the cause of people actually denying the manifestation of God? I'm sure there must be many reasons, but
I think it's ego mostly.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I think it's mostly ego, because especially for the people that are most learned, when, for example, Bob came, they said, why would this young one be the chosen one? I am much more learned. So I think it's mostly ego, as especially you get to become more, you know, in your opinion, learned and spiritual, you think you should be the chosen one, not somebody else. And that's why they cannot accept it. And the same, and I think that the people that are closer, like the family of the chosen ones, they get tested more, because they see them as a brother or father or whatever, and they don't see that other person. They cannot separate it.
I can just quickly add to that. It's firstly, the ponder and reflect thing. It's the first time that I think we see this. Like, I think it's silly, but I always look at the first time these things are mentioned, because I think now throughout the writings of Baha'u'llah, we keep seeing those words, ponder and reflect, or think on this, or, you know, like, don't just read it, see what it says. And of course, there are many obvious reasons why the people didn't except the causes. And I think in the next few paragraphs we'll see a lot more of those. But the ponder and reflect says to me that it's also of a spiritual nature, that it might not be obvious, and the only way we can understand some of these things is in the other realms. So that's one thing I wanted to add to the cause of these things. Some are obvious and some we do have to really think, and most of us probably can't even, I can't understand the reasons, but they're of spiritual ones. Anyway, that's one thing that I thought to add to that. And the other thing that I wanted to say was what Baha'u'llah is saying here is this is a proof of a manifestation of God. Although he uses another word here, a proof of the manifestation of God is that they are denied and attacked and things like that. And the two quotes from the Quran, I think again that it will come up. It's the story in the Quran that keeps happening, is that messengers of God come, they're attacked by the people. So it's a proof of the Bab because he was attacked and things like that. And it's also a proof of, as someone said, Mirza Yahya, I think, and it's a proof of what will happen to Baha'u'llah later on. That's what
Dr. Beheshti, welcome back. We just finished the book. We are finished now. So thank you very much. Are you able to hear us, Beheshti? Sorry, you're muted, Beheshti. I'll just unmute you. There you go.
What is that?
Now we can hear you.
You can. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, that was good. I was listening to, contributions that all the wonderful people are making. So carry on, please. Any other?
I actually had a point, which was based on what was shared already. It's interesting how, being a Baha'i, we should really be historians. Like, we're going back to the histories, to the stories that has happened in religion. He says, consider the past, and he says, ponder for a moment, and we see how this trend goes again and again. And it's also interesting how we are so much concerned with the future, like we're working for the future to get better. So I really feel that a life of a Baha'i is not confined to when they live, but really concerned about humanity, not just humanity that is living with them now, but humanity that has lived before them and will live ahead of them. It's just very interesting to me.
Yes.
What I also thought was very interesting was
Yes.
that the second sentence on that paragraph says, their attack hath been more fierce than tongue or pen can describe. And,
Yes.
I was looking at who's there, like their attack, and then I saw the passage before, the sentence before is saying that we should reflect upon the denial of those who have searched with such eagerness and longing. Their attack hath been more fierce. That actually, like, the people who were looking for the manifestation to come and yet were unable to see him, that their attack is even the most grievous, because they were supposed to be the people who should be on the forefront expecting the messenger to come, and yet they were unable to see past their own probably imaginings or their own, we said it before, like their own judgments, which I thought was very interesting.
Absolutely, yes, yes. You see, the point is this, that he's saying that not a single one of them was accepted straight away by the people of the time. Every single one of them were rejected. And denial, of course, here doesn't just mean you deny the person and that's finished. They planned the worst possible affliction that they inflicted on them in every age. Then he says, those who have searched with such earnestness and longing, you mentioned it before. You see, in every single book, divine book in the Adamic cycle. Adamic cycle from Adam to Muhammad was, the Guardian explained, that it was a cycle that was finished, that terminated with the appearance of Prophet Muhammad. And every one of these prophets, messengers, they prophesied the coming of a new age in which there will be messengers, like the Adamic cycle. So the Bab was the first one to start this new cycle. And it is said that it's going to, the Baha'i cycle, it's going to last at least 500,000 years. And this cycle, and in this cycle, prophets like the Adamic cycle, prophets will appear every at least 1,000 years or so. It could be more. And because of their books, in their books they had been told that the messenger is going to come, they were all eagerly waiting. And when he appeared, they rejected him. You know, like it is not, this incident is very clear that you know about the German Templars who had calculated the coming of the return of Christ in 1844. They had even researched and pinpointed the place that he was going to appear. So they went and they built houses just on that Ben Gurion, on the sides of Ben Gurion Road, below the Shrine of the Bab. There are red tiled houses that were built by these German Templars, and they waited because they knew that Christ is going to return, and he will return in this particular place. And it is said that Baha'u'llah placed his tent next to one of these houses when he was exiled to Palestine. And actually, he went to the house of one of them, or one of the doctors from this community came to see Baha'u'llah when he wasn't well, and still they did not recognize him. You see, he's making this point that every one of these people were awaiting for the coming, and yet they refused accepting him.
That reminds me of I forgot his name, but I'm sure AJ, Oshan, or Adam remember the name of the one-eyed, scarcely bearded renegade who opposed the Bab when he proclaimed, I am the promised one. The words he was saying, that he was, I forgot, he was a manifestation of following Satan, and just very strong what he was saying against such a mighty, such mighty words that Baha'u'llah, that the Bab had just exclaimed.
Yeah. Yes, very interesting. Yes.
Can I add something too?
Yes.
That somehow reminds me of like also like daily situations, because I think when people focus on one thing too much, they can't see the other things that are actually important. And that reminded me of also a very important topic, that is when you're religious, that you always find the middle, like you don't go in the extreme way and you don't go in the
other way.
my English is not so bad, but the opposite way. You have always have to find the middle, and I think that's very important. And I think these people were just focused on that one thing so much that they actually couldn't see the other things happening around them that were actually the truth that they were looking for.
Sure. Right. And this quote that in Quran it says, "No messenger cometh unto them." In the Quran is telling the people of Islam that every single messenger of God, without exception, was ridiculed, opposed, rejected, and made to suffer, as was Muhammad himself made to go through the same ordeal. Yet they failed to appreciate what the Prophet was admonishing them for. Reference is also made to the scorning of prophets in the Bible. In Luke chapter 4, verse 24, it is said, "And he said, Verily I say unto you, no prophet is accepted in his own country." And again in Matthew chapter 13, verse 57, "A prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house." So, next paragraph next week when we read, in that Baha'u'llah refers to other books and other places where so much has been written about this opposition and denial of the people towards the Prophet. Now, this people who are from Christian background perhaps can explain the last quote from the Bible, which says, "A prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house." What does it mean? What does this word "save" indicate here? Yeah?
I don't have an answer for that, but I'm just thinking that it might not mean house or home or country as we might usually talk about.
Yeah.
The country could mean heaven, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You see, to me, this "save" appears to be as though he says that he's only safe in the country, in his own country and in his own house. But if you look at the first phrase, people with better English than mine can perhaps explain better. A prophet is not without honor.
I think it means that the prophet has honor in everywhere except in his own country. That means people in his own country are not going to recognize him, but other people will get to recognize him. That's what my understanding is.
I see.
Is not with honor except in his own country.
Where he's accepted or he's not accepted?
No, he's not accepted in his own. That means it says it has no honor save in his own country. That means it has honor everywhere else except in his own country. So it's not accepted in his own country.
Right.
Oh, here it is. Somebody brought them.
Because you see, for example, Baha'u'llah in Iran, he wasn't respected at all at the time when he was preaching or teaching the Babi religion. He was exiled in Baghdad. He went through all that trouble, both from the Babis as well as non-Baha'is. And in the beginning, in other places as well. And gradually they recognized his station. To me, I may be wrong. I don't know. I wasn't sure about this. That's why I was asking you. That it's saying that when he appeared, whenever the Prophet appears, he's dishonored everywhere, even in his own country and in his own house. Would that make sense, or am I just imagining things?
Prophet is not without.
Yeah.
I still think that it says a prophet is not without honor, but in his own country. That means in his own country is without honor. I don't know. That's my understanding. But
Yeah.
my first language is Persian.
Right.
I'm
Anyway,
with you, Dr. Best.
Yeah, I think I put in the chat that it's a double negative. So
negative. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're right, Miss Majidi, that about that's what it turns into. Yeah. Meant to be.
Yeah.
I think it's logically everybody knows the prophet is small and grew up, and they have, how do you say, who cannot see the changes, cannot accept the truth from him.
Yes.
He
Yes.
sees like how can I explain? It's a body. How do you say? They think that the spirit, God is a spirit. That's why they, maybe they deny. I don't know. I think so.
Yes. There could be. There are many reasons. Yes, obviously. Great. Wonderful. Okay, so should we call it a day? And perhaps if there is no other comments or any opinions, we stop here as it is past the time with a prayer or something. Yeah? Anything anybody wants to add here? Or shall we say an ending prayer? Ending prayer? Louis?
Yes, Esther.
Okay. Is anybody volunteering to say a prayer, or?
I can do a song. Maybe someone else would like to say a prayer also.
I can say prayer.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think Kira also has a guitar already ready, so maybe she can also sing something.
Wonderful, yes, that'll
Yes,
be
please.
nice.
Thank you.
Hello, Sultan.
Hi.
Go on there.
Please go ahead.
Were it not for the cold, how would the heat of thy words prevail? Were it not for calamity, how would the sun of thy patience shine the midnight? Because of the wicked thou were created to bear and endure, to bear and endure, to bear and endure, to bear and endure. By thine aloneness sun of one is shown, and by thy banishment the land of unity was adored. So be patient, be patient, be patient, O thou exile of the world. Be patient, be patient, be patient, O thou exile of the world. Were it not for the cold, how could the heat of thy words prevail? Were it not for calamity, how could the sign of thy patience shine? The men died because of the wicked thou wert created to bear and endure, to bear and endure, to bear and endure, to bear and endure.
Yes, Emmy. Come.
O my Lord and my hope, help thou thy loved ones to be steadfast in thy mighty covenant, to remain faithful to thy manifest cause, and to carry out the commandments thou didst set down for them in thy book of splendors, that they may become banners of guidance and lamps of the company above, wellsprings of divine infinite wisdom, and stars that lead aright, as they shine down from the supernal sky. Verily, thou art the invincible, the almighty, the all-powerful.
Verily God loveth those who, as though there were a solid wall. Verily God loveth those who, as though there were a solid wall, do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause in Syrian lands. Do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause in Syrian lands. Verily God loveth those who, as though there were solid wall. Verily God loveth those who, as though there were solid wall, do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause in Syrian lands. Do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause in Syrian lands. Do battle for his cause, do battle for his cause.
to battle for his cause in saving lives, to battle for his cause, to battle for his cause, to battle for his cause and saving lives.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for contributing your views. That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pleasure. So Sunday again, yes, 9 o'clock. Our time is 9 o'clock. I don't know which part of the world you are from. So this coming Sunday, same time as today.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Have a blessed evening.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Aloha.
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 Ciao.